embrace life? Do you have ideas that come to your mind when you think about people with ADHD or anxiety? Of course you do. We all do. Well, we have some ideas that we want to throw at you. Stay tuned because you're in for a treat.
We all have ideas. We have ideas about what foods we like to eat, what foods we don't like to eat. My kid even has ideas about what vegetables he likes by the texture of the vegetable. We have ideas about what colors we like, what colors we want our rooms to be, what color clothes we want to wear, what kind of cars we want to drive. We all have ideas about everything in life. So let's find out what exactly an idea is.
So an idea is actually a formulated opinion. It's an opinion that you form in your mind about any given topic. So it could be about food. It can be about, hey, I see that lady over there or that man over there. They have a smug look on their face. Yeah, they're not going to be the kind of person I like. So it can be over anything. And especially when it comes to the different aspects of mental health, and ADHD, anxiety, depression are all mental health things. So we tend to form opinions, I would say. Different ideas about people with those issues, especially when you don't know a lot about them.
Yeah, that's true. Very, very true. I think we tend to, as human nature, we tend to look at things and automatically start to form an idea or an opinion about that person or that thing in our life.
So we're going to talk about an idea that we had, and not like a formulated opinion, but an acronym.
Yeah, so I.D.E.A. Include, depend on, engage, and affirm. So let's start with I, include.
So people with ADHD have a thing that goes on in their brain that's called perceived rejection dysphoria. And they perceive that you're like what it says, they perceive that you're rejecting them, even if it's not an actual rejection. So you want to focus on bringing them in, right?
That's right.
Bring them in to your group. If you're doing a project with them at school, they're going to shy away sometimes and think that their ideas are not as important. Their ideas are not as needed, as grand, as they're going to feel like they're not part of the group a lot of times. So you need to reach out and kind of extend an arm and say, hey, why don't you work on this? Or what are your thoughts on this part? You want to be intentional. Be intentional to show them that their ideas are important, that what they have to say has meaning.
That's a big thing. Going back to focusing on bringing them into the group is if you're intentional to show them that their ideas or their thoughts and desires are important to what you're doing, then that makes them feel more included, and it also helps them to feel like they can open up to you more. So then they'll be more likely to help out even more on other things throughout the day.
And something I've noticed, I live with 3 squirrels. I mean, all 3 of my guys have ADHD, is that their gifts, they are brilliant, like beyond, I can't even explain. But a lot of times they discount those things because their thoughts are so scattered that they have to be reminded that their gifts, their talents, their smarts are just as important as everyone else's. They just have to have help bringing them in. So maybe you can help them to rein those things in. Maybe your job can be to organize what they're telling you. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, it does. So it's about teaching them that their gifts may not be the same as everybody else's, but that they are equally important as everybody else's. So you may be the person that facilitates them realizing that those 500 thoughts they've got running through their mind all at one time, while they may not be cohesive and coherent and they may not all fall into place together, they are all equally as important to the project or the task or the group or whatever's going on at that moment in their life. And it may be that you just need to be able to show them through love and through a gentle hand, or showing them inclusion and teaching them that, hey, you know, all that stuff is important. All that stuff can be a big deal. We just need to figure out how to get that stuff out and how to help you figure out how to organize that stuff.
D is for depend on.
So just like I include, D is going to start with something that's very, very important to people who deal with issues like ADHD or anxiety or depression or whatever. Delegating tasks. So if you have ADHD like I do, where your mind is a hamster wheel and it's constantly spinning and never stops, it pays off dividends to have somebody show you that they are depending on you to do something. And the best way to do that is to delegate tasks that are challenging, that challenge them above and beyond what a normal task would be, but at the same time has a clear end goal and a clear way to get there. So that could be something like, for a kid that's in school, it could be where most kids get tasked with gathering up papers from their fellow classmates. It could be tasking a child to take those papers down to the office to turn them in. Well, then now that child's being tasked with something that's, oh, this is really important. I'm getting to leave the classroom. You know, I'm getting to go down to the office, and I get to go out and trek across the school, and my teacher's depending on me to get this done, and my classmates are depending on me to get this done and get these papers turned in.
And it also involves a little bit of movement, which is what they need,
That's
so that it focuses on them and their needs also.
So that leads us into showing them that it's okay if they don't always do those tasks the exact same way that we would. And we've seen that's a big thing with our own child, our youngest one, is, and I was the same way in school, but it's his math work it's crazy.
It gives me a headache.
He can sit down and do math problems and never write a bit of it down. And you ask him how he got it, and he could write out an entire page for a simple math question. And he may not do multiplication or something the way we do, but he still gets the same answer. He still gets the answer right. Like, what's one he did recently? 8 times 4? What did 8 times 4 that he broke up all crazy?
It was 3 times 6. And he said, well, I know that 6 plus 6 is 12. And then plus 3 more is 15. And plus 3 more is 18. So 6 times 3 is 18. And
we were like, where did that come from? But he got the answer right? I mean, he got the answer right. And that's what matters. It's we didn't try to correct him. We didn't tell him, oh, that's wrong because you didn't do it the way we did it. We said, oh, you got the answer right. That's awesome. And that's a big thing that goes back to including them and teaching them that their gifts are important, and their gifts, the way they do things, may not be the exact same way everybody else does, but they're equally as important and equally as needed in the group.
So learning how to do things and allow people to do things differently is something that I struggle with. And I mean, it even goes back to like when Luke was little, our oldest son, and I would ask Shannon to change diapers, and he would do things totally different and squirrely than the way I was doing them. And I finally, I would say, no, that's not how you do this. But I finally had to realize that it's okay. It's okay that he does things differently as long as the task at hand gets done. That's the point. You depend on them to do this task, and as long as it gets done, it doesn't matter how it's done.
Unless it's laundry. She doesn't let me touch the washing machine. All right, so doing all of that. So we've gotten to the point now that we're trusting them, and we're delegating tasks to them, and we're giving them things to do, and we're showing them that it's okay if they don't do those things exactly the way we would, as long as they still get to the end goal in mind, right? So back in include, we talked about teaching them that their gifts were important. once you get to this point and depend on and delegating tasks and showing them that it's okay that they can do this stuff different than we do, as long as they still get to the end goal, that's teaching them that they are important. It's not just their gifts that are important to the group, to the class, to the family, whatever. It's not just the gift that's important. It's the person themselves that's important. And that will open up doors in their heart. It'll open up doors in their mind. It'll cause them to kind of open up and be a little more lively and more engaged in the family. All right, so now E stands for engage, right? We talked about that. So we just got done talking about engaging them in the family. So
we're going to work on now engaging with the person individually and showing them how their gifts are important, but also that they are not defined by the diagnosis at hand. Our youngest son said to us the other day, I can't do this. What about my ADHD? I said, oh, no. You have ADHD. ADHD does not make you who you are.
That's absolutely correct.
And the same thing goes for anxiety too.
Depression and ODD and any of that stuff. It's not the diagnosis doesn't define who you are. It's just like sin. The sin doesn't define who you are. The sin is just a part of your life at that present moment.
And yeah, I think oftentimes people who have those diagnoses, they have preconceived ideas about themselves. They hear all of these statistics. They hear, people with ADHD become drug addicts because they don't know how to deal with it. They become alcoholics
because they don't know how to deal with it.
They, people with anxiety and depression, they become alcoholics because they don't want to deal with the depression. Well, then it comes back. But the thing is, they need to understand, and other people need to understand, that just because they are a list of symptoms of things that are bad, there is such a list of symptoms that are good things.
Yes.
So hyperfocus is a major symptom of ADHD. And so often you hear about the scattered brain, but what you don't hear is how focused they can be on something that interests them.
Yes. And that's a big thing too. We don't hear people talk about that at all, like ever. And that's something that I deal with is hyper focus. Something that our two children deal with is hyper focus on whatever is at hand in that moment that is engaging to them. And that can be beneficial because if you get a child or an adult who has hyper focus issues, then you teach them to use that hyper focus to their advantage and use it to grow in their businesses, use it to grow in their education, use it to grow in their understanding of, the world or scriptures or something that they enjoy like coding or something like that. That is a major benefit to somebody that deals with hyperfocus.
Yeah, so it's really, while sometimes it can be a curse, it is a gift at times too. A gift that can be very useful and very important to their life, to their family, to their job. And it lends more to you are not defined by this diagnosis.
That's right.
This does not make you who you are.
That's right.
It's just part of you.
That's absolutely correct. And that, that shows them that their gifts are special. That leads back to that their gifts are important and they are important and their gifts are special and they are special. They're special to you. They're special to the people around them. They're special to their friends. They're special to the group.
And number one,
are special.
They are special to Jesus.
Yes.
Because he did not make mistakes and he made them the way they are.
That's right. He allowed them to have the things, the gifts that they are dealing with for a purpose. He gave them hyperfocus for a purpose. He gave them anxiety for a purpose. He gave them all of the things that they're dealing with in life for a purpose. Nothing happens by accident. All right, so we've gone through I, include. We've gone through D for depend on. We've hit on E for engage. That was a good one. Now we've landed on A for affirm.
So people with anxiety, depression, ADHD, sensory processing, we haven't really talked a lot about that, but
that's a big thing.
It really is. With people who have ADHD, sensory processing tends to come alongside that. But people with those mental issues need to have affirmation in their lives. They need to be told that they're doing a good job.
Absolutely.
I know Shannon's love language is words of affirmation. So he thrives, and so do our boys, on being told how well they're doing something. It doesn't have to be like a good boy, you're doing a great job. But, just a, hey.
Attaboy.
Great job doing XYZ. Whatever it is. Just say, little things. But one thing that really got me one time, these people, my guys specifically, need to understand that they are capable of accomplishing anything. And, a lot of our focus is on school stuff because, we're in the midst of raising boys. They're 8 and 11. And I had a teacher say to me, "Oh, don't worry, Mom. He's going to be a great citizen once he graduates high school."
Yeah, really?
No, my child is brilliant and can do fabulous things right now. His worth is not dependent on what he can focus on and what he cannot focus on. So that being said, we just had to come alongside him and say, no, you are fabulous. You can do whatever you put your mind to. You can be as successful as you want to be.
That's right.
As successful as God intends for you to be.
That's right.
And we had to go behind this person and build him back up.
Yeah.
And we see this a lot.
Teaching him that his gifts are important, just like we're talking about right now. Teaching him that his gifts were important, engaging him and showing him that he is loved and showing him that affirmation that he is needed and he is important.
So we see this a lot. People who have ADHD and anxiety and depression, that they are so downtrodden a lot because they don't have those affirming thoughts. They naturally go to the negative. So they need people to come alongside them and say, hey, you're doing a great job.
That's right. When I used a reference earlier of a hamster and hamster wheel. When your mind is so full of thoughts and running so fast, I want you to take a moment, indulge me, picture this with me. So get in your mind a picture of a hamster wheel in a cage. Get in your mind a picture of the hamster on that hamster wheel with Energizer Bunny batteries in his back, and he never stops moving.
That was the image that we used with our youngest son.
The hamster wheel is your brain. The hamster wheel is your head. The hamster is your brain. And the wheel spinning constantly and never stopping, that's all those thoughts running through your head that you can't compute every single one of them. You've got literally microseconds with each thought to be able to compute and process. So when you don't get those words of affirmation on a regular basis, and all you have are those negative thoughts that keep popping back in your mind because that's what you hear from society, then that's what your mind goes to all the time.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Brittany was leading into was, if you don't tell that child or that adult or whoever it is that's dealing with these issues or these gifts, if you don't tell them that they are loved or that they are doing a good job or that they are going to be successful, that they are important, that they can be depended on, that they are needed and do need to be included in stuff. And if you don't tell them those things, then they never process those things back into their mind.
And it's a cycle. It's a cycle that repeats itself. that needs to be broken. It needs to be broken because, again, they are important. They need to be included. They need to be depended on. You need to engage in them, involve them in your life, your kids can bring them into their group, involve them in their friends, invite them places. Look, I know what it's like to take a child with ADHD to a trampoline park.
Yes.
I know what that's like. But they need to be invited to those things because they need to feel
loved
and
engaged and brought in, included, depended on, affirmed. I.D.E.A, right? Include, depend on, engage, and affirm. Okay. So let's work on engaging these kids, these adults, these people in our lives, right? Let's work on our idea. Remember, I is include. Include them in your group. Bring them in. Bring your kids in to meet these other kids. Bring these kids in with your kids. Bring these other adults into your group. Bring them in. Show them they're included. Show them they're needed. D, depend on, right? So you're giving them tasks. You're letting them know that you are depending on them and giving them things to do that show them that they are able to be depended on. E, engage. Mm-hmm. So we're going to engage. We're going to, like we said, bring in and include and depend on and show them that they're loved and show them that not only are their gifts important, but they themselves are important. Mm-hmm. And A, affirm. We're going to tell them that they're doing a good job. We're going to tell them that they are loved. We're going to tell them that they are needed. We're going to give them the affirmation in life that they need to be able to be the people that God created.
So why don't you drop some ideas down in the comment section about how you're going to incorporate our